Hi everyone, my name's Senjanin. Behind me, some slides are just going to kind of roll with student work and images that we used in class. I teach, as Jim said, on the south side of Chicago at Back of the Arts, college prep. I have sophomores, so English 2. I was in Jessica Brantley's The Illustrated Manuscripts to New Media, and her seminar investigated kind of the relationship between text and image throughout history, and it exposed us to a variety of image texts. Everything from the Bayeux Tapestry to photo essays to concrete poetry to graphic novels to my personal favorite, which was the works of William Blake. And I think I have to pause here for a moment because that was probably one of the coolest things that happened to me in the 2 weeks that we were here. I teach William Blake every year as much as it will fit in, and I have the last 10 years. And I was like inches away from his original works, the copper plates that he etched, the paper he printed on, and then painted. And to have that experience is amazing. That was the top one, but I also got to see an original signed and scribed Great Gatsby and Leaves of Grass, and the map that Lewis and Clark took west is hanging in a room that you get to go into. And I think that it's just really important to focus on those experiences to analyze and evaluate and look at the originals of things, because that's something that lacks in a lot of our professional development opportunities at home, and that's why this is such an amazing experience. So, that said, having access to these resources allows us to do things in our classroom and bring things to our kids and connect our kids to things that we never would have been able to previously. So my unit was born out of necessity. As the English 2 curriculum asks, we must cover 6 literary periods and have a diverse book list with diverse authors, when there wasn't a whole lot of diversity in that authorship in the beginning, and keep a 16-year-old interested. And that's not very easy, because when you're going from medieval Canterbury Tales through the Renaissance and Romantic poets, and you end at Marjane Satrapi's Persepolis, there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't really excite a 21st century 16-year-old. So for my unit, I used image to keep that interest high and introduce a variety of literary skills that our kids seem to find scary. So I believe that our kids are doing literary analysis and creating arguments on a daily basis. They're just doing it with things that are familiar to them. Images, social media, various things that are so much less scarier that they deem as easier, but they're not easier at all. They're just more familiar. And so I really wanted to make the transfer of knowledge from the skills that they're using on a regular basis and ask them to use it in the classroom, because they tend to shut down in the classroom when you ask them to do literary analysis. But really, they know how to do it. They know how to think critically. So what I did was I created a unit called the Multiple Literacies Being Developed in the Literature Classroom, Hieroglyphics to Graphic Novels. The statement of inquiry for the unit, or our kind of main idea, otherwise IB speak, was investigating the history of the relationship between text and image is vital to varied forms of analysis. And we focused on various ideas of how image and text have worked together and kind of become one throughout history. So what I did was, for every literary period, I found a image text to introduce the time period and the literary skill that I was trying to get them to work with. So first, we did a 2-week unit at the very beginning of the year, kind of talking about image, that started off with an analysis of Magritte's Treachery of Images. That's that whole, this is not a pipe, it's a picture of a pipe. Everyone know what I'm talking about? It flipped through. And conversations of how ancient hieroglyphics and today's emoji are connected, and how the way that we communicated back then can definitely be connected to the way we still communicate now. And then for every unit that we do, we spend the first couple days of the unit looking at images related to that text or that time period. And one of the tools that we used to do that was a thing that's called a See, Think, Wonder. And the goal of it is to slow down the student's analysis and to kind of take things step by step. So first, it's basic, like very unscary. What do you see? Colors, lines, images, maybe you name those images, but it's very basic. Then what do I think about this? Okay, so if you said you saw letters, now put those letters together. Oh, you thinking is reading, so now we can say that that picture says something in French, oh, it says, this is not a pipe. And then we ask the kids to wonder about the image. This brings up the kind of analysis component, talks about authorial or artist intention, brings ideas of symbolism. What does this remind you of, connecting it to past things? It really slows down their analysis process. And you can use the See, Think, Wonder on simply a poem, right? When we ask kids to look at the elements of structure and line length and punctuation, things that you just see before you even begin to do that scary thing we call reading. It also, the first 2 weeks, allowed me to introduce 4 literary criticism lenses that we'll work with all year: the Marxist, feminist, reader response, and archetypal. And asking a 16-year-old to use, access all of their previous knowledge about what communism is, to use the Marxist lens doesn't always happen very smoothly. So what we do is we introduce them with images, then we introduce them with music videos, and finally ask them to perform literary criticism on little movie clips, everything from a clip from Selma to Mean Girls, the lovely lunchroom scene, and an emotional Thai commercial. Have any of you ever watched there's these amazing commercials on YouTube from Thailand. Yes. They're like 3.5 minutes long. They're like little mini movies, very amazing. And then they have to write a mini analysis, and this is setting them up for when they have to actually read 2 tales from Canterbury Tales and write literary criticism. And then a larger version, they will be starting to do so with Midsummer Night's Dream. The fact that they get to practice these lenses in a familiar arena allows them to get a little bit of confidence. So far, the writing has been much better from when I taught these lenses last year, not with this kind of theme through. So currently, just last week, we started reading Midsummer Night's Dream, and so we used their previous knowledge on Romeo and Juliet, looking at different ways that cover art has been created for the various versions that have come out. We watched the same clip from each of the plays, analyzing kind of the moving image to bring out, how do you pull a tone? How did the director create that tone? What was the difference between Zeffirelli and Lerman? And it really allows them to access all of these skills that they most definitely have, but in a more familiar and comfortable arena. So far it's going really well, and we'll revisit image text, and different literary analysis skills throughout the year with every unit.